Picture this. The waters of the heavens and the earth collide in an unstoppable fury, erasing entire civilizations and leaving only whispers of survival in ancient myths. Was the Great Flood a real catastrophe that ravaged our planet, or an eternal symbol of renewal and warning? In the unveiled past, we unearth these hidden mysteries of time, revealing truths that challenge everything we think we know. If you're passionate about uncovering the secrets history has buried, subscribe now and join this epic journey through the veils of the past. It all begins with water, not a gentle river or a calm lake, but a liquid fury that obliterates everything in its path. Imagine standing on an ancient plain, thousands of years ago, as the sky darkens and rain pours down, as if the gods themselves had shattered the floodgates of the heavens. The ground trembles, rivers overflow, and the horizon becomes a roaring ocean. What would you do if the world you know vanished beneath the waves? This is the question that has haunted humanity for millennia, from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the jungles of Mesoamerica. Because the flood, that great deluge we all know from Noah's story, isn't just a biblical tale. It's an enigma, echoing in the hearts and legends of cultures separated by oceans and eras. Think about this. How is it possible that a single event, described with such striking similarities, appears in the myths of peoples who never met? In the Bible, Noah builds an ark to save his family and the animals from a flood sent by God. But long before, in ancient Mesopotamia, a man named Utnapishtim receives a divine warning and constructs a boat to survive a deluge that sweeps the earth. In India, the sage Manu is guided by a fish to escape a great flood. Even indigenous peoples of the Americas speak of waters that devour the world, leaving only a few to rebuild. Coincidence? Or is there something deeper, something real, connecting these stories across time? Here we are, standing before one of humanity's greatest mysteries. The Great Flood isn't just a story, it's a cry echoing in our collective memory, a whisper of a past that might have been more real than we imagine. What if I told you that modern science is starting to uncover evidence that something catastrophic happened, something that could have inspired these legends? Could a real event, a flood of apocalyptic proportions, have altered the course of human civilization? Get ready, because this journey will take us from sacred texts to the sediments of the earth, from the voices of the ancients to the boldest theories of today. Let's start with Noah. We all know his story, etched in the pages of Genesis. Thousands of years ago, the tale goes, humanity had grown so corrupt that God decided to cleanse the earth with a flood. But Noah, a righteous man, received a divine command: build an ark of wood, a sanctuary against the coming storm. For 40 days and 40 nights the rains fell without cease, and the waters from below erupted, covering even the mountain peaks. Everything that breathed perished, except those who found refuge in the ark. When the waters receded, Noah and his family began anew, planting the seeds of a renewed world. It's a story of judgment, survival, and hope. But is that all it is? A moral parable meant to teach? Imagine for a moment you're one of the scribes who penned this story on clay tablets or ancient scrolls. Why write something so specific? Why detail the construction of an ark, its exact measurements, the animals aboard? The precision of these accounts suggests more than a mere metaphor. And here's the irony. While modern science often dismisses these tales as myths, geologists and archaeologists have begun finding clues that something monumental happened in the distant past. Strange sediment deposits, rock formations that could only be explained by massive floods, even drastic climate shifts at the end of the last ice age. Could these clues be the remnants of an event that inspired the flood stories? But hold on, because it gets even more intriguing. Did you know that Noah's story isn't the oldest? Long before, around the year 2500 before Christ, scribes in ancient Sumeria recorded the tale of Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh. This Mesopotamian hero, like Noah, is warned by a god, Ea, of a flood that will destroy the world. He builds a boat, gathers animals, and survives to tell the tale. The similarities are staggering: endless rain, a vessel floating on the waters, even the sending of birds to seek dry land. How could two cultures, separated by centuries, share such a similar story? And what about the tales in India, China, or the Americas? Each, in its own way, describes a flood that sweeps the earth, leaving only a few to start anew. Here lies the mystery. Was the flood a local event magnified by human imagination, or something far greater? A global cataclysm that marked humanity forever? Modern scientists have proposed bold theories, from the collapse of glacial barriers unleashing entire oceans to comet impacts triggering colossal tsunamis. Some point to the Black Sea, where evidence suggests a massive flood occurred around 7,500 years ago, transforming a lake into a sea and displacing entire populations. Others speak of megafloods at the end of the Ice Age, when glaciers melted and seas rose, drowning inhabited lands. Imagine the terror. You're a dweller in a coastal village 10,000 years ago. The sky is grey, the ground shakes, and suddenly, a wall of water appears on the horizon, devouring everything in its path. Homes, crops, families, all vanish beneath the roar of the waves. But also imagine the resilience. Because somehow, humanity survived, and not only survived, but carried these stories forward, passing them down through generations, as a reminder of the fragility and strength of the human spirit. This chapter is just the beginning. As we'll discover, the enigma of the flood isn't just a matter of faith or science, but a quest to understand who we are and how we've faced the greatest challenges of our past. Was the flood a real event that changed the world, or a metaphor that binds us all? Get ready, because the answers might surprise you more than you imagine. Chapter 2. Echoes in Ancient Legends. Picture yourself seated by an ancestral fire on a starry night, listening to an elder recount a tale passed down through generations. The words flow like an invisible river, speaking of waters that devoured the world, heroes who survived, and enraged gods. Isn't it fascinating that despite vast oceans and cultural barriers separating peoples, these same stories of apocalyptic floods appear time and again? In this chapter, we dive into the echoes of ancient legends, unearthing flood myths from diverse cultures that reveal astonishing similarities. Could these narratives, separated by continents and millennia, point to a shared origin, a primordial event that united humanity in terror and survival? Get ready, because what you'll discover might challenge everything you thought about the human past. Let's begin in the sands of Mesopotamia, the cradle of some of the oldest civilizations. Here, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest known epics written on clay tablets over 4,000 years ago, we find Utnapishtim, the survivor of a great flood. The gods, angered by humanity's noise, decide to wipe out the earth with a deluge, but Ea, the god of wisdom, secretly warns Utnapishtim. He builds a massive boat, square like a cube, with 7 decks and walls sealed with pitch. He brings aboard his family, craftsmen and animals of every kind. For 6 days and 7 nights the storm rages, the sun vanishes, and the waters cover everything. When it stops, Utnapishtim sends a raven that doesn't return, a sign that land has emerged. Sound familiar? It's nearly identical to Noah's tale, but centuries older. The irony is palpable. A story many associate only with the Bible has roots in a polytheistic culture, suggesting the flood might be a collective memory, not an isolated invention. But let's not stop there. Journey eastward to ancient India, where Vedic texts narrate the story of Manu, the progenitor of humanity. In the Matsya Purana, Manu, a pious man, finds a small fish that begs for protection. He cares for it, and the fish grows into an incarnation of Vishnu. This godfish warns Manu of a great flood that will destroy the world. Manu builds a ship, ties a rope to the fish's horn, and is towed to safety as the waters engulf everything. In the end, Manu offers sacrifices and repopulates the earth. Imagine the scene, waves roaring like enraged beasts, the ship dancing in chaos, and Manu clinging to hope. What drove the ancient Hindus to create such a similar narrative? A cultural coincidence, or the echo of a real disaster that spread like ripples in a pond? Now, cross imaginary oceans to the Americas, where pre-Columbian civilizations hold their own watery secrets. In Mayan mythology, recorded in the Popol Vuh, the gods attempt to create perfect humans but fail multiple times. In one attempt, they send a flood to destroy the wooden men, imperfect and noisy. Waters fall from the sky, mixed with black resin, and the earth floods. Only a few survive, turning into monkeys or escaping to the mountains. Similarly, the Aztecs speak of 4 suns or previous eras, each ending in catastrophe. The 4th era ends in a flood, the heavens collapse, waters rise, and humans turn into fish. Only a couple, guided by the god Tezcatlipoca, survives in a hollow log to repopulate the world. How could peoples isolated from the old world tell such parallel stories? It's a paradox that invites reflection. Perhaps a global event, like the end of the Ice Age, left imprints on the human psyche, manifesting in myths that travel with nomadic peoples. And let's not forget traditions from other corners of the world. In Greece, the myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha, narrated by Ovid in the Metamorphoses, describes how Zeus, irritated by human corruption, sends a flood. Deucalion, warned by his father Prometheus, builds an ark and survives with his wife. As the waters recede, they throw stones that turn into people, repopulating the earth. In China, Emperor Yu the Great battles a great flood, lasting 9 years, channeling rivers and dredging lands to save his people. Though not a total deluge, the watery chaos is central, with dragons and gods intervening. Even in the Pacific Islands, Polynesians speak of Nu, who builds a canoe to escape a flood sent by the gods. These stories, scattered like stars in the sky, share key elements: divine wrath, warning, a boat or shelter, survival, and renewal. Doesn't it make you question if they all stem from the same well of ancestral memory? Here's the turning point. These similarities can't be mere coincidences. Anthropologists suggest flood myths may trace back to real events at the end of the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago, when melting glaciers raised sea levels by hundreds of feet, flooding coasts and valleys. Imagine entire communities fleeing rising waters, carrying tales of terror and hope. Others theorize early human migrations disseminated an original story, adapting it to local contexts. But there's a bitter irony. While these legends celebrate resilience, they also warn of fragility. Humanity, faced with nature's fury, emerges transformed, stronger, but marked by eternal fear of repetition. Think about how these narratives have shaped our worldview. In each, there's a chosen hero, an act of obedience or ingenuity that saves the species. It's as if humanity, through these myths, is processing a collective trauma. And what if the flood wasn't just a physical event, but a psychological breaking point that spurred the development of religions and societies? In Mesopotamia, fear of floods might have inspired elevated ziggurats. In India, purification rituals. In the Americas, calendars predicting cycles of destruction. As we'll see later, these legends aren't alone. Modern science backs them with geological evidence. But for now, let these echoes resonate in your mind. Are you ready to delve into the proofs that might turn these myths into real history? The journey continues, unveiling layers of mystery that connect us all. Chapter 3: The Quest for Geological Evidence. Imagine for a moment you're a geologist delving into the Earth's depths, pickaxe in hand, and sun scorching your back, unearthing layers of rock that hold secrets from millennia past. Each stratum is a page from an ancient book, narrating tales of forgotten cataclysms. What if I told you that beneath our feet lie evidences of massive floods that could confirm the legends of the Deluge? In this chapter, we venture into the quest for geological proof, examining sediments from colossal floods, inexplicable rock formations, and climate shifts at the end of the Ice Age. We'll build tension by contrasting theories of local megafloods with the possibility of a planetary cataclysm, using vivid descriptions to evoke the chaos of melting glaciers and rising seas. Are you ready to see how science turns myths into potential realities? Because what you'll uncover might make you question if the flood was just a tale or an event that reshaped the world. It all starts at the end of the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago, when the planet was emerging from a long glacial winter. Ice sheets, vast as continents, covered much of the northern hemisphere. But then, something shifted. The climate warmed rapidly, and those glaciers began melting at an alarming rate. Picture rivers of icy water flowing like unstoppable torrents, carving deep canyons and dragging boulders the size of houses. In North America, for instance, Lake Agassiz, a glacial body larger than today's Great Lakes, collapsed repeatedly, unleashing floods that swept the landscape. These mega-floods, known as the Missoula floods, sent waves hundreds of feet high through what is now Washington state, creating the channeled Scablands, a maze of dry canyons and eroded hills. The land was torn as if a giant had raked its nails across it. Could events like these have inspired stories of a global deluge? But let's dig deeper. Geologists have found strange sediment deposits worldwide, layers of sand, gravel, and mud that could only have been laid down by catastrophic floods. In the Gulf of Mexico, for example, there are strata suggesting massive tsunamis around 8,000 years ago, possibly caused by underwater landslides or meteor impacts. In the Black Sea, a team led by William Ryan and Walter Pittman uncovered evidence of a sudden flood around the year 5600 before Christ. What was once a freshwater lake turned into a saltwater sea when Mediterranean waters breached a natural barrier, raising levels by hundreds of feet in mere months. Imagine coastal villages drowned in an instant, their inhabitants fleeing to the hills, carrying tales of a sea that devoured the land. This Black Sea flood theory posits that this event could be the origin of Mesopotamian and biblical legends. It's a fascinating irony, a local disaster magnified by oral memory into a universal apocalypse. Now consider global climate changes. At the Ice Age's end, sea levels rose over 100 meters, flooding vast coastal areas once inhabited. In Doggerland, the submerged land between Britain and Europe, archaeologists have found human artifacts under the North Sea, suggesting entire communities were swallowed by rising waters. In Australia, formations like those in the Great Barrier Reef show evidence of rapid sea level rises, coinciding with glacial melts. And what about the extinct megafauna? Mammoths, mastodons, and giant sloths vanished abruptly around that time. Some scientists argue massive floods disrupted ecosystems, causing mass extinctions. Picture herds of animals fleeing roaring waters, only to perish in the mud. Here's the tension. Were these floods local or part of a global pattern synchronized by planetary warming? A key turning point emerges with evidence of cosmic impacts. During the Younger Dryas, an abrupt cooling period about 12,900 years ago, some researchers propose a comet or asteroid fragmented and struck Earth, melting glaciers and triggering floods. Layers of nanodiamonds and glassy spherules found in sediments from North America, Europe, and Greenland support this hypothesis. The impact would have vaporized ice, creating torrential rains and tsunamis that swept continents. It's an intriguing paradox, a heavenly event causing an earthly deluge, linking ancient myths with modern science. Yet not all agree. Critics argue these evidences could stem from wildfires or volcanoes. Still, the data accumulation paints a picture of global chaos. Think of the rock formations defying conventional explanations. In the Bolivian Altiplano near Lake Titicaca, elevated terraces suggest ancient water levels far higher, possibly from post-glacial flooding. In the Sahara, once green and wet, dry channels and lake deposits indicate massive floods about 10,000 years ago. Even in Antarctica, ice cores reveal spikes in methane and carbon dioxide, signaling rapid melts. How do we connect these dots? Earth's resilience is evident. After the chaos, life rebounded, but with visible scars on the landscape. This quest isn't just academic, it interpellates us directly. If you've walked eroded canyons or seen submerged coasts, you've touched the remnants of these events. What if the flood was a series of interconnected catastrophes, not a single apocalypse? As we'll discover soon, scientific theories delve even deeper, turning these proofs into bold hypotheses. The mystery intensifies, inviting us to reflect on our vulnerability to nature. Chapter 4: Scientific Theories Uncovered. Picture yourself as a scientist in a remote lab, surrounded by ancient maps and digital data, connecting dots between millennial myths and modern evidence. Each hypothesis is like a spark in the darkness, illuminating enigmas that have haunted humanity. What if I told you that current scientific theories could explain the flood not as divine punishment, but as a cosmic or climatic cataclysm? In this chapter, we delve into modern hypotheses, like comet impacts or glacial barrier collapses, that might justify a global flood. We'll highlight turning points in research, such as discoveries in the Black Sea, and interpellate the viewer to reflect on how science transforms myths into possible historical realities. Get ready, because these theories not only challenge ancient beliefs, but invite us to question our place in an unpredictable universe. Let's start with one of the boldest hypotheses: a comet impact at the end of the Ice Age. About 12,900 years ago, during the period known as the Younger Dryas, Earth experienced an abrupt cooling after initial warming. Scientists like Alan West and James Kennett proposed that fragments of a comet exploded in the atmosphere over North America, releasing energy equivalent to thousands of atomic bombs. This event would have melted vast ice expanses, triggering massive floods and tsunamis that swept continents. Imagine the sky lit by fireballs, the ground shaking, and rivers of icy water surging from fractured glaciers. Evidence like nanodiamonds, crystals formed under extreme pressure, found in sediments from Greenland, North America, and Europe, supports this theory. But here's the irony. A space visitor meant to destroy might have propelled humanity's shift from hunter-gatherers to farmers by altering climates and ecosystems. Another key turning point is the Black Sea flood theory, proposed by geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman in the 1990s. Around the year 5600 before Christ, the Mediterranean's level rose due to post-glacial melting, breaching the Bosporus barrier. Salt waters flooded the freshwater lake that was the Black Sea, raising its level by over 100 meters in mere months. This cataclysm would have displaced entire populations, inspiring myths like those of Noah and Gilgamesh. Underwater excavations have revealed submerged Neolithic villages, with intact tools and pottery, as if time froze beneath the waves. Can you imagine fleeing a wall of water that turns your home into an abyss? The paradox is clear: a local event in scale, but global in cultural impact, spreading through trade routes and migrations. Don't forget theories on glacial barrier collapses. In Canada and Siberia, massive glacial lakes like Lake Ojibwe or Lake Missoula formed behind ice dams. When these burst, they released water volumes equivalent to entire oceans. The Missoula floods, for instance, occurred multiple times between 15,000 and 13,000 years ago, creating waves up to 600 meters high that swept the northwestern United States. Geologists like Victor Baker have mapped these flows, finding gravel deposits and eroded canyons that could only be explained by such forces. Imagine the deafening roar, the ground quaking like an earthquake, and the land redesigned in hours. These events, synchronized with global climate changes, might have contributed to a flood perceived as universal by scattered communities. But let's delve into the implications. Did you know that some scientists, like Graham Hancock though controversial, suggest these catastrophes destroyed advanced prehistoric civilizations? While mainstream academia debates it, evidence like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a 12,000-year-old site with carved pillars, indicates complex societies right after the Younger Dryas. Human resilience shines here. From watery ashes, innovations like agriculture and monumental architecture arose, yet the tension persists. Were these events caused by earthly factors, like orbital variations, or external influences, like comets? A fascinating twist comes from astrobiology. Hypotheses like a late heavy bombardment propose that, about 4 billion years ago, comets brought water to Earth, but later remnants might have caused floods. Though this dates back too far, echoes in craters like Chesapeake in the United States, dated to 35 million years ago, show impacts generating mega tsunamis. Closer in time, the Burckle crater in the Indian Ocean, possibly from 5,000 years ago, might have triggered waves affecting distant coasts, inspiring Hindu and Sumerian myths. Reflect with me. If these theories hold, the flood isn't just a myth, but a reminder of our cosmic vulnerability. How does science, with its precise tools, unearth truths that legends intuited? As we'll see in coming chapters, these ideas intertwine with survivor tales, revealing a narrative of human transformation. Chapter 5: Survivors and Lost Arks. Imagine for a moment you're on a fragile vessel, surrounded by a raging ocean, swallowing the land you knew. The sky is a mantle of black clouds, rain pounds like an eternal drum, and only the wood beneath your feet separates you from annihilation. What would you do if humanity's fate rested on your shoulders? In this chapter, we explore tales of arks and savior heroes across traditions, comparing Noah to figures like Utnapishtim, Manwë, or the survivors of the Americas. We'll focus on human resilience, narrating how these stories, paradoxically, celebrate life emerging from disaster, with a rhythm alternating between epic drama and moments of introspection. Get ready, because these tales aren't just myths, they're mirrors of our ability to face the impossible. Let's start with Noah, the archetype of the survivor. In Genesis, his story is a hymn to obedience and hope. Thousands of years ago, when humanity had grown corrupt, God commanded him to build an ark of cypress wood, with precise measurements, 300 cubits long, 50 wide, 30 high. Picture the labor. Without modern tools, Noah and his family felled trees, shaped planks, and sealed the vessel with pitch under a scorching sun. For 40 days and 40 nights, waters fell as divine punishment, covering even the highest peaks. Noah, his family, and the animals aboard floated in a drowned world, awaiting a sign of redemption. When a raven didn't return and a dove brought an olive branch, hope was reborn. The earth, cleansed of its past, offered a new beginning. But reflect, why is this story so specific? Why detail the ark's dimensions, the days of rain, the birds sent? It's as if the narrators sought to anchor a real event in collective memory. Now journey to Mesopotamia, to the story of Utnapishtim, etched in the Epic of Gilgamesh over 4,000 years ago. In this version, the gods, weary of human clamor, decree a flood. Ea, the cunning god, whispers to Utnapishtim to build a square boat, with 7 decks and waterproof walls. Imagine the chaos. Utnapishtim gathers his family, craftsmen, and animals as the sky tears open. For 6 days and 7 nights, the deluge devastates all. The silence that follows is more terrifying than the storm. Utnapishtim, like Noah, sends birds, a raven, a dove, a swallow. When land reappears, he offers sacrifices to the gods. The irony runs deep. A pagan story, predating the Bible, shares near-identical details. Could both stem from a real event, echoed through generations. Cross continents to India, where the myth of Manu resonates with equal power. In the Matsya Purana, Manu finds a tiny fish that grows into Vishnu, the protector god. It warns him of a flood that will end the world. Manu builds a ship, and Vishnu, as a giant fish, guides it through roaring waters. Picture the scene: waves like mountains, the ship swaying, and Manu clinging to a rope tied to the fish's horn. When the waters recede, Manu repopulates the earth, becoming the father of a new humanity. The paradox is captivating. A fish, a symbol of aquatic life, saves humanity from aquatic destruction. Could this tale reflect a collective trauma, a memory of survival in a flooded world? In the Americas, survivor stories are equally vivid. In the Mayan Poplar Vuh, the gods destroy the wooden men with a flood. Some escape to the mountains, becoming monkeys, while others survive through ingenuity. Among the Aztecs, the legend of the Fourth Era tells of a couple, Nene and Tata, surviving in a hollow log, guided by the god Tezcatlipoca. Imagine their desperation, sealed in darkness, hearing the waters roar, with faith as their only light. In Andean traditions, the god Viracocha sends a flood, but allows some to survive in caves or high peaks. These stories, separated by oceans, share a core: humanity on the brink, saved by courage or divine intervention. Chapter 6: Impacts on Human Civilization. Picture yourself as an ancient nomad, fleeing waters that devour your village, the echo of chaos ringing in your mind. You survived, but the world you knew is gone forever. How do you rebuild a life after a catastrophe that obliterates everything? In this chapter, we analyze how the fear of the flood shaped human societies, from architecture designed to defy the waters, to religious beliefs that still resonate today. We'll reveal ironies, like civilizations reborn stronger after devastating floods, and invite you to imagine how a catastrophic event might have spurred advances in agriculture, urbanism, and spirituality. Get ready, because the flood didn't just destroy, it planted the seeds of modern civilization. Let's consider the immediate impact of a massive flood. About 12,000 years ago, at the end of the Ice Age, melting glaciers raised sea levels, flooding fertile lands where communities thrived. Imagine coastal villages swallowed by relentless waves, their inhabitants forced to migrate to higher ground. In the Persian Gulf, for instance, what was once a green oasis, possibly the mythical Garden of Eden, lies submerged beneath what we now call the Arabian Sea. Archaeologists have found remnants of human settlements under these waters, with stone tools and pottery whispering tales of loss. But here's the paradox: these catastrophes, though devastating, forced humanity to adapt, to innovate, to create. One of the clearest legacies of flood fear is antediluvian architecture. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats, stepped towers rising like artificial mountains, were not just religious centers but refuges against recurring floods of the Tigris and Euphrates. Picture priests and craftsmen climbing these structures, watching from above as waters covered the fields, praying for salvation. In the Indus Valley, the cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, built over 4,500 years ago, boasted advanced drainage systems, as if their inhabitants feared another deluge. Elevated streets, underground channels, and reinforced mud brick walls suggest a society obsessed with controlling water. Isn't it ironic that the fear of aquatic destruction inspired some of humanity's earliest engineering marvels? But the impact goes beyond stone and mud. The flood shaped spiritual beliefs that still shape our world. In Abrahamic traditions, Noah's story is not just about survival, but a divine warning about corruption and redemption. Imagine ancient Hebrews narrating this tale around campfires, teaching their children that obedience to God can save even from an apocalypse. In India, the myth of Manu, guided by Vishnu, gave rise to purification rituals still practiced, like ablutions in the sacred Ganges River. In Mesoamerica, Mayans and Aztecs wove the flood into their cosmologies, with calendars marking cycles of destruction and rebirth. Reflect: how could the trauma of a flood have birthed religions that venerate both destruction and creation? A key turning point is how these catastrophes spurred agriculture. When lowlands flooded, communities moved to arid regions, where intensive farming became essential. In the Fertile Crescent, around the year 10,000 before Christ, the domestication of wheat and barley coincided with rising sea levels. Coincidence? Likely not. Picture survivors, hungry and displaced, learning to sow in less fertile soils, developing irrigation techniques that turned deserts into fields. In Egypt, the Nile's annual floods, though controlled, reminded Egyptians of water's fury, inspiring a canal system that made the valley an agricultural powerhouse. It's a powerful irony. The water that destroyed also taught humanity to master it. And then there's urbanism. Floods forced communities to organize, to build more complex settlements. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a 12,000-year-old site, suggests that survivors of the Younger Dryas built monumental temples before even developing permanent villages. Imagine hunter-gatherer groups, united by flood trauma, carving stone pillars to honor their gods and guard against future catastrophes. In China, legends of Yu the Great, who channeled rivers to control floods, inspired fortified cities along the Yellow River. These early cities not only withstood water, but marked the birth of civilization as we know it. But here's the twist. The flood didn't just create, it divided. Forced migrations from floods separated peoples, giving rise to distinct cultures with unique languages, religions, and traditions. Yet they all shared a common memory: the terror of the waters and the hope of a new beginning. Reflect with me. Isn't it fascinating that a destructive event could have sown the seeds of cultural diversity? As we'll see later, Modern debates between science and faith still revolve around this enigma, questioning whether the flood was a literal event or a metaphor that binds us. Chapter 7: Modern Controversies and Unsolved Enigmas. Picture yourself standing at the crossroads of science and faith, holding ancient texts in one hand and geological data in the other, trying to unravel a mystery that has haunted humanity for millennia. What if the flood, that cataclysmic event etched in myths worldwide, still sparks debates that challenge our understanding of the past? In this chapter, we dive into the modern controversies surrounding the Great Flood, exploring the clash between creationists and scientists, and highlighting unresolved enigmas like anomalies in the fossil record or indigenous oral traditions. We'll build suspense by exposing paradoxes that remain unanswered, inviting you to question whether the flood was a literal deluge or a collective metaphor for transformation. Get ready, because the deeper we go, the more the lines between myth and reality blur. Let's start with the heart of the debate. Was the flood a global historical event or a symbolic tale woven from local disasters? Creationists, particularly those who interpret religious texts like the Bible or the Quran literally, argue that the flood was a divine act that submerged the entire earth thousands of years ago. They point to the story of Noah, found in Genesis, which describes waters covering the highest mountains, wiping out all life except those aboard the ark. To support this, some cite geological features like the Grand Canyon, claiming its rapid formation could only result from a massive singular flood. Imagine their conviction: a world drowned in 40 days and 40 nights, leaving behind a planet reshaped by divine wrath. But here's the tension. Mainstream science challenges this view, arguing that no single global flood could account for the complex geological record we see today. Scientists, on the other hand, approach the flood through the lens of evidence. Geologists like David Montgomery argue that the Earth's landscape tells a story of multiple, localized megafloods rather than one universal deluge. For instance, the channeled scablands in Washington state, formed by the Missoula floods around 15,000 to 13,000 years ago, show how catastrophic but regional events could inspire global myths. The Black Sea deluge, around 5,600 years before Christ, offers another clue: a rapid inundation that submerged Neolithic villages, possibly sparking stories like those of Noah and Utnapishtim. Yet, here's the irony: while science dismisses a planet-wide flood, it uncovers evidence of cataclysms so vast they could have felt universal to ancient peoples. Could these localized events, amplified by oral tradition, have birthed the global flood narrative? Now let's turn to the fossil record, where mysteries abound. Creationists often point to vast fossil beds, like those in the Karoo Formation in South Africa, containing millions of skeletons, as evidence of a sudden catastrophic burial by floodwaters. They argue that such deposits, where marine and terrestrial creatures are jumbled together, could only result from a global deluge. Picture the scene: a chaotic surge of water, entombing dinosaurs, fish, and plants in a single muddy grave. But paleontologists counter that these beds formed over millions of years through gradual sedimentation and local floods. Yet, anomalies persist. For example, the Burgess Shale in Canada, dated to about 505 million years ago, preserves soft-bodied creatures in exquisite detail, suggesting rapid burial under extraordinary conditions. Could these be echoes of ancient floods, or something else entirely? Another enigma lies in indigenous oral traditions. Across the Americas, Australia, and the Pacific, stories of great floods predate contact with Christian missionaries. The Hopi people of North America speak of a world destroyed by water, with survivors escaping to high mesas. In Australia, Aboriginal tales describe a time when the sea rose, swallowing coastal lands. These stories, passed down for thousands of years, align eerily with scientific evidence of rising sea levels at the end of the Ice Age, around 12,000 years ago. Imagine elders recounting these tales by firelight, their words carrying memories of a drowned world. The paradox is striking. How could isolated cultures, with no written records, preserve such consistent accounts? Are these memories of real events, or universal archetypes born from humanity's fear of water's power? A turning point emerges in the debate over the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Some scientists propose that a comet strike around 12,900 years ago triggered massive flooding, climate shifts, and megafauna extinctions. Evidence like nanodiamonds and shocked quartz in sediments supports this idea, suggesting a cataclysm that could have inspired flood myths. But critics argue the evidence is inconclusive, pointing to volcanic activity or natural climate shifts as alternative explanations. The suspense builds here. If a cosmic impact caused widespread flooding, it could bridge the gap between science and myth. Yet, without definitive proof, the debate rages on, leaving us to wonder if the truth lies in a synthesis of both. Reflect on this. The controversy isn't just about facts, it's about meaning. For some, the flood is a testament to divine power, a reminder of humanity's fragility. For others, it's a puzzle to be solved through data, revealing our planet's turbulent past. But what if both sides are touching different parts of the same truth? The flood, whether literal or metaphorical, speaks to our resilience, our ability to weave stories from chaos. As we'll see in the final chapter, these debates connect the past to our present, urging us to face modern challenges with the same tenacity. Think of the resilience these narratives celebrate. Each hero, Noah, Utnapishtim, Manu, Nene, is a symbol of humanity's ability to face the impossible. But there's a bitter irony. These stories glorify survival, yet are born from trauma. Picture ancient storytellers, gathered around fires, recounting these tales to explain why the world is as it is, why humanity persists despite nature's fury. What if these arcs, whether of wood, reeds, or logs, were metaphors for our adaptability? Some archaeologists suggest post-glacial floods, like those in the Black Sea or Persian Gulf, forced survivors to migrate, carrying these stories with them. A turning point emerges in considering how these narratives shaped cultures. In Mesopotamia, fear of floods inspired elevated ziggurats, designed to escape future waters. In India, purification rituals reflect rebirth after destruction. In the Americas, Mayan and Aztec calendars mark cycles of creation and catastrophe. Reflect, how did these stories, born of chaos, shape religions and societies? As we'll see later, the flood's impact transcends myths, molding civilization itself. Chapter 8. Eternal Reflections of the Flood. Imagine standing on the edge of time, gazing back at a world reshaped by water, where myths and evidence intertwine like rivers converging into an ocean. The Great Flood, whether a singular cataclysm or a tapestry of ancient disasters, has left its mark, not just on the earth, but on the soul of humanity. In this final chapter, we weave together the threads of our journey, connecting the past to the present and reflecting on the lessons of resilience in the face of modern climate challenges. We'll explore the enduring enigma of an event that unites us all, inviting you to ponder its deeper meaning. And as we close, we'll ask you to join the unveiled past in uncovering more secrets of history. Subscribe now to continue this epic quest through the mysteries that define us. Let's pause to reflect. Throughout this journey, we've walked through ancient myths, from Noah's Ark to Utnapishtim's boat, from Manu's fish-guided vessel to the hollow logs of Mesoamerican survivors. We've unearthed geological clues, sediments, eroded canyons, submerged villages that hint at cataclysms so vast they could have inspired these tales. We've grappled with scientific theories, from comet impacts to glacial collapses, and wrestled with controversies that pit faith against reason. But what does it all mean? Was the flood a literal deluge that drowned the world, or a metaphor for humanity's ability to endure, adapt, and rebuild? The answer, as we've discovered, might lie in the tension between these truths. Consider this. The flood, in all its forms, is a story of survival against impossible odds. Picture yourself as one of those ancient survivors, clinging to a makeshift raft as the world around you vanishes beneath waves. The terror is unimaginable, yet so is the hope that drives you to keep going. Every culture we've explored, Mesopotamian, Indian, Mayan, Aboriginal, tells of a remnant that rises from the waters, carrying the seeds of a new beginning. This resilience is the heartbeat of the flood narrative. It's no coincidence that these stories, born from chaos, inspired ziggurats to defy future floods, irrigation systems to tame rivers, and religions that celebrate renewal. The flood didn't just destroy, it forged humanity's capacity to create. Here's the irony. An event that divided peoples, scattering them across continents as seas rose, also unites us. If you've ever stood by a river, felt the spray of a waterfall, or watched a storm roll in, you've touched the same primal fear and awe that inspired these myths. The flood lives in our collective memory, a reminder that we are both fragile and unbreakable. Modern science reinforces this. Rising sea levels, melting ice caps, and extreme weather events echo the cataclysms of 12,000 years ago, when the Ice Age ended and the world was reborn. Today, as we face climate change, the flood's lessons resonate. How do we adapt to a warming planet? How do we rebuild after disaster? The ancients answered with ingenuity, building cities, mastering agriculture, crafting stories that endure. What will our answer be? A pivotal reflection lies in the flood's enduring mystery. Was it a single event, like the Black Sea Deluge 5,600 years before Christ, or a series of catastrophes, from the Missoula floods to Younger Dryas impacts? Perhaps it's both, a mosaic of real events amplified by human imagination into a universal saga. The paradox is profound. Science and faith, often at odds, both seek to explain the same human experience. Creationists see divine judgment, scientists see geological upheaval. yet both recognize the flood as a turning point, a moment when humanity faced annihilation and chose to survive. This shared quest for meaning binds us across time, from ancient scribes etching clay tablets to modern researchers coring ice samples. Let's zoom out. If you could soar above the Earth today, you'd see a planet shaped by water, coastlines carved by ancient floods, rivers feeding civilizations, oceans hiding lost worlds like Doggerland or the Persian Gulf's sunken oasis. The flood is not just a story of the past, it's a mirror reflecting our present and future. Climate models predict rising seas will submerge coastal cities by the end of this century. Storms grow fiercer, floods more frequent, yet like our ancestors, we stand at a crossroads. Will we learn from their resilience, building new arcs through innovation and unity, or will we repeat their fears, divided by conflict and doubt? The flood teaches us that survival demands action, whether it's constructing a boat or forging global cooperation. As we close, let's embrace the enigma. The flood is more than a historical puzzle. It's a testament to humanity's ability to find meaning in chaos. Whether you see it as divine will, geological upheaval, or a blend of both, its story is ours. It's the tale of a species that faced the abyss and emerged stronger, carrying tales of arcs and survivors across millennia. In the unveiled past, we chase these mysteries, unearthing truths that connect us to our origins. If this journey has stirred your curiosity, subscribe now to explore more secrets hidden in the shadows of history. Together, let's keep asking, what else lies waiting to be unveiled?